Welcome to AM Muscle Maintenance with In Shape Fitness. I'm Coach Kim. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's podcast is called Hands and Knees Basic Movements, going back to the really simple movements that can be derived from the single starting position of quadruped. It's a funny name, and it is basically going back in evolution to creatures that walked on four legs. But being on your hands and knees is a position that forms the basis of movements that help limber up and keep elastic your spine and the muscles that help stabilize your spine and your trunk, your head, and your neck. Also, the stability and strength of your hips and your shoulders. And it stimulates the movements within this position can stimulate the soft tissues, the muscles, and the ligaments and tendons that help strengthen your back and your tummy. We can also do a lot of exercises throughout this. I don't sort of differentiate as much between cardio work and strength work like a lot of traditional exercise experts do. I try to get that blended in and keep your heart rate elevated in a nice, healthy, active place throughout the work that we do together. So when you get started, we're going to do a couple of just deep breathing techniques as well as a postural systems check on the floor to make sure that you're in the position correctly and that you go back to the correct starting position when we transition from one exercise to the other. But then we'll elevate your heart rate and hopefully keep it elevated for the duration of, say, like 15 or 18 minutes or so. So let's begin with the position of all of your body parts and a couple of deep breathing techniques in what we call the postural systems check. Most of the time, I do this part. It's about 2 minutes worth of your time, and it's something that you really should do every single morning. Even if I still haven't convinced you to get up out of bed and roll into a space where, you can spread your arms out wide if you're standing, and you can lie down on the floor flat without bending your knees. So, like your living room floor, hopefully. I live in New York City, so space issues are actually kind of a big deal. And so if you haven't taken the hints over these years to get up and actually do something really active for the first couple of minutes of your morning, at the very least, you could go to a quiet place, and take a couple of really deep guttural breaths where you're inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. And that's important because filtering air in through your nose helps your brain, the executive, more sort of modern part of your brain, maintain its control over your physical self, meaning hormone secretion and your heart rate, your anxiety level. When you mouth breathe, when you inhale air through your mouth, the part of your brain that's more primitive is activated, and therefore your brain has a more challenging time maintaining a steady and calm heart rate, as well as keeping those kind of stimulating hormones at bay that might otherwise drive your kind of fight or flight syndrome. It might affect your psychology during the day, and it certainly affects your metabolism, because if you're sitting all day and you are, kind of sedentary, that means that your brain should not be kind of triggering the systems that get you to want to move. But by doing what it's doing, if you're mouth breathing, you're having a really hard time maintaining control over those sort of physiological processes that take place during your wake time. So inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. Now you want to bellow that air out of your mouth, and inhale. I say smell the roses and bellow the air. So you're smelling the air, the oxygen's coming in through your nose. You're bellowing the carbon dioxide, all those waste gases out of your body really deeply, and contracting your diaphragm in the process, which, in case you didn't know, hopefully you do know, because even middle school, junior high, or whatever, science kids know that there's this muscle at the bottom of your lungs that contracts and expands as part of your respiration cycle. So every breath that you take during the day is muscular activity. And guess what? It can be stimulated and it can be improved, and therefore you are even sitting or just standing up and not moving around too much, you're activating and stimulating the cellular processes that drive your metabolic base, which is important to try and stabilize and increase if you can. All right, now we are going to, if you're on your hands and knees, we're going to just go through your body parts. So it's with your head and your neck. It's kind of a little tricky in quadruped. Your gaze should be at your floor, which means that your neck then is in the neutral position. So you can move your head a little bit around, maybe do a couple of head circles if you want. In the cat position, which we're going to do in just a second, you let your head drop like a bowling ball so that you can round up your spine. So you can do that if you like, but your neutral position in quadruped is a straight spine, which means that your eyes should focus on your floor, straight ahead. All right, and then your hands and your shoulders should be in one straight line, and that means that your center of gravity is not going to be altered through a stable position where if you were too far forward or too far back, you've moved your center of gravity away from the sort of essentially where your belly button is. And what you want to do is maintain the proper amount of tension in your trunk throughout your trunk, so your back and your abs, and then not put undue pressure on your rotator cuffs and on your hips by maintaining a knee, hip straight line, and then a hand, wrist, and shoulder straight line. The last thing that I will say, the other thing is that I guess this goes without saying, if you're making a straight line between your hips and your knees are about hip width apart. And likewise with your shoulders and your hand stance is about shoulder width apart. But the last thing then that I'll say is that I always find it helpful and make this recommendation to everyone that I work with in New York, that when you're on your hands, splay your fingers. Don't close your fingers, because number one, your fingers don't get a lot of action in our very seated at the desk, typing on a keyboard or driving a steering wheel sort of lives. Of course, we do type, so our thumbs get a lot of activity. And sometimes if we're very, very type, our jobs are type specific, you might end up typing a lot with your fingertips, but you don't really have a lot of regular hand and finger sort of labor that would keep your fingertips and all of the joints and soft tissues in your hands nice and strong and nimble, and so splay those fingers, and you can at least give them a little bit of that while you're in this position. Then let's move into a couple of cats and camels. That means we are limbering up your spine. As I said before, one of the most important things here in this position, again, we're going sort of think about being, back in evolutionary, millions and millions and millions of years ago, when there weren't two-legged animals. All animals were either slithering around on the ground or maybe had multiple legs, but your four-legged mammals came along and there were 4 contact points with the ground. Now, our bodies as humans are very unusual in evolution in that we don't have a tail. All other animals have some other ability to balance. Birds, of course, have their wings, and then, the only animals that really spent a lot of time on 2 legs had tails that were sort of their rudders that helped them with their balance. So four-legged animals have a much keener sense of balance because of the 4 contact points with the ground. And this you should take advantage of. Now, when you go into your cat and you round up the spine, as I said before, you drop your head like a bowling ball. And that just means that it's dangling there. You want to feel the stretch through the back of your neck, and then you push the thoracic part of the middle part of your back, the spine, up like a scared cat. And again, the back is the only thing that's moving. You're not shifting your body weight forward or back. You're just rounding up your spine. Take a deep breath. And then as you inhale, you pause. As you exhale, you move. So if you're staying in this position for a couple seconds, it's okay to take a deep breath in and out. But when you're moving, you want to be exhaling. Now, the camel is the alternate to this scared cat. And what that means is that you invert your back such that your lower back contracts and your head and your chest lift up a little bit. Again, don't shift your body weight forward or back. Your shoulders and your legs, your quads are stable in one position. You just invert your back and lift your head and your chest. And again, take another deep breath. Excellent. One more time in the cat, one more time in the camel. The next thing that I want to do is take a couple of seconds to elevate that heart rate just a smidgen. And the easiest way to do that, and this is remarkable to me, that we can elevate the heart rate so quickly, even as a relatively fit person, you might find that this is unusually, taxing on your body. So all you do is maintain that quadruped position again, but now you're going to lift up off of your knees onto the balls of your feet. And you don't have to go far. Just lift up a couple of inches and then lower back down, but don't rest your knees back on the floor. Just lift and lower and lift and lower. I'm going to count down from 30 seconds starting now. You're just lifting up, lowering down, lifting up, lowering down. And if you want to go up a little bit higher, you can even go all the way up almost to downward facing dog, but you don't want to pause in downward dog. We can do that. We've got 15 more seconds to go. We're going to do that shortly, but you're just lifting up and lowering down. There is a move actually as well, and you can try this at your leisure some other time, where you lift your knees up off the floor. Your 15 seconds is, your 30 seconds is complete, so you can rest now. Where you lift your knees up off the floor, and then you motor around on the floor, kind of like a bear would. We call it a bear walk, actually, and that is a really challenging way a move that you can incorporate into lots of exercise regimens if you're, if you have the space. I've been in apartments in New York City training people where I've had to sit on the bed, and the only space in the floor was literally about the size of a yoga mat. So there really wasn't all that much space to do that. But when you got tons of space, or you're in a park or something, go for it. It's super fun. It's fun to do with kids too. This is a really great way to incorporate exercise into your family's life, because chasing kids around on all fours is good for everyone. Okay, now if you're resting, maybe you rest in child's pose. If you don't know that exercise, that stretch, it is an invaluable stretch for your back, as well as a good barometer for you to understand how flexible not only is your back, but also your butt, because you want your butt to be able to sit all the way down on top of your heels. And if you can't get your butt to touch your heels, that indicates a range of motion limitation in the gluteus area. So it might not just be the gluteus maximus, but it could be several things going on within the soft tissues that operate the gluteo-hip area. But you also want to be able to drape your torso all over your thighs and stretch your arms, walk your arms as far away from your head as possible. And that stretches out the top of your shoulders and the top of your back. It's a really wonderful stretch. So spend a couple seconds there. Take a couple of deep breaths whenever you're stretching. Now go back to quadruped. and I want to do a stabilizing exercise that you probably also know. You probably, if you've listened to these podcasts over the years, I don't do that many exercise routines where there isn't a lot of sort of editorializing about the purpose of exercise. This one I wanted to do because I've been having a couple of conversations with aging clients that really have a tough time moving around on their feet. And a lot of that stems from fear that they have about falling down. And so being able to be comfortable on the floor and then be able to strengthen your body from these really basic sort of exercises that you can use to strengthen your body's mechanics and range while you're on the floor is one way that we help aging clients develop the tools that they need to have less fear, first of all, but also if they do end up on the floor, how they will get back up. All right. So that's why I'm doing this specific routine. But the one thing that you'll note is that none of this is fancy, and it never really is with me. I like to use the body. I don't like to use equipment very much, and I never use machines in gyms. We are talking about exercises that you can do without help every single day that are not about looking good on the beach and not about wearing a little black dress. It's about the function of your body and your ability to maintain your life without the burden of medications and low energy and, excess weight as you get older. So the bird dog exercise is the next one that we're going to do. We've only got 3 more to do. And we're going to do a bird dog where you extend your right arm straight forward from your head, not up, but just out flat, so that your bicep is right next to your right bicep is right next to your right ear, and your palm faces your head. All right, so now you're on 3 limbs. Now I'm going to put you on 2 limbs because you're going to coordinate that right arm movement where your bicep is right next to your ear with a leg lift on the left side where you're extending. You're not lifting the left leg up, but you're straightening the left leg out straight and lifting it just so far that it is where your ankle, your knee, and your hip are in one horizontal plane together, one line, along with your right arm and your right leg. So you're a bird, like a bird dog, a pointer, I guess, hunting dog maybe, would point with its front paw, and then maybe I've never seen it stick a leg out in the back, but maybe it's meant to be the tail. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's called the bird dog, and it's a great exercise because what it does is it activates the paraspinal muscles that connect each vertebra to its neighbor, right? So they're little muscles that line the spine and help the movement in all the multi-directional movements that the spine is supposed to be able to do. These little teeny tiny muscles are activated with this diagonal dimensional movement. So now you're going to switch so that your right arm goes back to the floor right underneath your shoulder, your right hand, and then your left leg goes back to the quadruped position, left knee under the left hip. And then we're going to switch so that your left arm extends forward and your right leg extends back. Excellent. Again, back to quadruped, back to child's pose. So really, really specific, 3 specific things we've done so far. And then did I say 2 more or 3 more? Let's try to get through at least 2 more. We did the cat camels. We did the bear stand. So lift up the knees, lower down, lift up, lower down. And then we did the bird dog. Now we're going to go into downward facing dog. And the downward facing dog position is pretty simple. All you're going to do is lift those knees back up off the floor again, but this time keep lifting until your butt is straight up in the air and you basically form a triangle with the floor, where the floor is the base, and then your legs are one leg, and then your arms and trunk form the other leg of the triangle. And that is downward facing dog. You should feel your calves stretch in this position, and your heels might not be able to touch the floor, but that's okay. You should also feel the back of the legs at the top, the hamstrings. You should feel a little bit of difficulty with respect to your shoulders. Your arms may not be strong enough for this position for very long, and that's okay. So if you need to go right back to child's pose, by all means do so. But being able to hold the position downward facing dog is a really good indicator that you have a fundamental, just a foundational level of strength through the entire body. A plank, where you're in push-up position, is that next level of strength that you want to be able to develop later, but we're not going to cover that today. That's not a basic fundamental exercise that I really wanted to keep this as simple as possible with exercises on all fours that are easy to do. Okay, so your quadruped position is next again, so go right back to your quadruped. The last exercise that I want to do is an exercise, actually let's try to do two more, because I want to do the exercise that helps build lateral strength in your hips and legs, and that's called the fire hydrant. So now we're literally acting like animals here. We're going to be dog, and we continue the versions of dog here, where you lift up your leg to the side with that 90-degree angle still. So from quadruped, you keep your back flat, you keep your abs drawn in, and then your right leg stays stable. You're going to just lift the left leg up like you're going to pee on a fire hydrant, and then lower the leg back down. That's the fire hydrant. And you can make the fire hydrant exercise really difficult with lots of variations, where you lift and kick, where you lift and hold, where you add you could even add a resistance band if you wanted to make it a little more complicated or a little more challenging just for the lifting and lowering. You can lift, kick, and hold a straight leg out straight, and then make some circles with your feet. Whatever you do on the right side, make sure you do on the left side. Okay, so let's even things out now. Whatever you've done to experiment with this exercise on the right, let's stabilize with the left leg and work the right leg a little bit. And then the last thing that we're going to do is an exercise that maintains stability with both of your legs, but adds in an exercise that opens up your chest a little bit. So pretend now, keep your right hand on the floor in quadruped, back to go back to that base camp point, right, where your hands, your shoulders line up in one line, your knees, your hips line up in one line, your gaze is at the floor, so your head is in neutral position. Now your right hand is going to stay on the floor. With your left hand, pretend that you have a little weight in your hand, but you don't need one. Just forget about the idea that you need a weight. If you have one and you want one, okay, fine, but you don't need one. What I want you to do is to take your hand and bend your elbow just a little bit, and then extend the left hand through the space between the right hand and the right knee. Kind of almost a little bit of a twist of the torso with it, and then reverse direction and pull the left hand out, and then lift up and twist your torso a little bit towards the left until you feel the left chest muscles activate and open up. All right, and you can do that a couple of times, and you'll feel that opening up of your chest. It is also taxing on the right side, because the right shoulder and arm have to stabilize you. And then switch and do the other side with the left hand stable and the right hand moving. Now, here's an interesting thing to think about. As we've just done now, the fire hydrant exercise, where you kept one leg stable and moved one leg. And then the chest row, the chest fly exercise, where you have one arm moving and one arm stable. And probably, most likely, one side was more challenging than the other. One side might seem tighter than the other. All of that is normal. All of that is fine. Be prepared for that, to feel that for your entire life, because if you're right-handed, your right side is dominant, which means that you're stronger typically with your right side, but that could also mean that you're tighter on your right side. And then if you are left-handed, you're left side dominant, but left dominant people tend to have a lot of crisscrossing of strengths and challenges because of differing ways that we've adapted to a right-handed world. I'm left-handed, so I talk about this a lot, actually. And there's adaptations sometimes. Like I write and I play tennis with the left hand, but I swing a baseball bat and a golf club with a right, as a right-handed person would. And those types of things are very fluid and bizarre with left-handed people. So just know that it's going to feel different on one side or the other. I want to go so that I can be finished. I'm past the point of 25 minutes, but I did want to make sure that you have a way of getting in touch with me if you have any questions about these really simple exercises. Again, just based on the quadruped fundamentals, and we just got started. There's so many other variations that we could do together. So if you're starting out, you really want some basics, let me know. You can interact with me via our website, bodybynshape.com. There's a contact page there. You can get in touch with me that way. Or get in touch with me through social media at InShape Fitness on Twitter, or InShape Fitness NYC is our Facebook page. And let me know if you need specific help. I am certainly able to help you. And I'll be back next week with another new routine at AM Muscle Maintenance. Have a great day.